I realized there are unique, outrageous acts of love that can be committed by me and me alone, and that is the unique purpose, obligation, joy, and responsibility. It's my ability to respond to reality. That's my outrageous act of love.
A planetary awakening in love through a unique self-symphony.
What a privilege it is to be part of this global community.
There's a voice within me that asks, who am I, right? Who am I in all of this?
Each and every one of us has a unique gift to give that we desperately need.
Welcome to the heart of the revolution, everyone. How wonderful to be together today in one mountain, many paths, where our mission is what Barbara Marx Hubbard and Dr. Mark Goffney call a planetary awakening in love through unique self-symphonies. We are activating a new humanity and awakening as a new species. Homo Amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapiens. As a church, synagogue, mosque, temple, zendo, no one is excluded, everyone is included, and we come together to attune to the evolutionary impulse awakening within us. Welcome home, everyone. I am Christina Tahel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josepha, Jamie Long, and Jacqueline Clark, and we are all delighted to be together with you in week 296 of our live community broadcast. What a privilege it is to be part of a global community where we contribute to humanity's flourishing. Use the Zoom and the Facebook chat functions to say hello, to let us know where you're from, to express your prayers, and to resonate the Dharma. We are streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. If you are on one of those platforms listening now, feel free to join us on Zoom. On Zoom, check that your chat settings say everyone so that we can all hear from you. Care to step into the work and practice of creating the great Homo Amor library, and it is quite a practice. I've spent the last few days working with some of us, specifically Elena and Joycey, and the depths that we are experiencing through this process is stunning. You can reach out to me for the holy opportunities. My email is in the chat box now. Join us every Monday to write to today's evolutionary love code. One Mountain, Many Path members receive an email about writing to the evolutionary love codes after One Mountain every week. Next week, at the top of the hour, right after the service here today, or right after the One Mountain, Many Paths service next week, with the Outrageous Love Festival only 2 months away on August 6th through the 12th, we will come together on screen, on Zoom, live for a community meeting with a Dharma talk about Eros and existential risk by Dr. Mark Goffney, and a question and answer session with Dr. Mark. Join us as an outrageous love ambassador and discover what you can do to support the revolution. More details will follow in an email. What to expect today? First, a Dharma recap from myself from last week. Then Dr. Mark Goffney sets our intention. Then David will resonate the evolutionary love code that we're working with. And then we step into our evolutionary sermon with Dr. Mark Goffney, and sometimes with a recorded video of Barbara Marx Hubbard. And then we move into meditation to enter prayer. To close, Krista invites us deeper into community, and we bring people on for our goodbyes and a short dance party. Mark writes what he calls evolutionary love codes. Mark and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them to Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. These codes grow out of their radical commitment over 100 collective years, crystallizing the new story of humanity. Quote, evolving the source code of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love, unquote. I welcome all who are new. We need you. One Mountain, Many Paths is radically committed to telling the new universe story. Now for my recap from last week. Emerging unique self symphony, being seduced into our greatness. Last Sunday, Dr. Mark Goffney had to urgently take care of a dear friend and asked Krista Stenbergen to lead One Mountain, Many Paths, which Krista did brilliantly, diving into the Dharma of unique self and unique self symphonies. Who are we? And what if we had a deeper understanding of the human being? Each of us is a unique self, an irreducible, unique expression of love, beauty, love, intelligence, and love, desire that never was, is, or will be ever again. And as such, we have unique gifts to give in our unique corner of the world that no one other than us can give. When unique selves come together, we are a unique self-symphony, and we come together to play our instruments in the symphony. And we are not just one unique self-symphony, but we're multiple unique self-symphonies coming together to play together. Unique self-symphonies is a new emergent, a new possibility, something that has never existed before. And it's the way that we respond to existential risk, not as a top-down response, but as a bottom-up response. The universe self-organizes, and if we download into the universe a new structure of consciousness, we are actually operating on the very DNA of the cosmos. We're downloading new information into cosmos, and that trickles down into every realm of this world. So, unique self-symphony is an evolution of the source code, a new way of being with each other, and a new way of being in our beautiful world. Here, as Krista so beautifully expressed last week, here in One Mountain, Many Paths, and at all the many organizations that are being held in this space, like the Center for Integral Wisdom, we seek to support each other, hold each other, and love each other to become, we seduce each other to become the greatest version of ourselves, to be our most wondrous, most beautiful. We are seducing each other to become from separate self upwards to true self, into greater depth, into our uniqueness, into our unique self, into our evolutionary unique self, seducing each other into picking up our instrument and playing in unique self symphony to transcend the boundary of our limitations, for the sake of ours and reality's greatest, deepest need. Each of us here, ontological activists, being the transformation. We show up not only for our own transformation, but we know the highest level of transformation is knowing our transformation transforms the entire story. We are one with the field of consciousness and desire. We become homo amor in unique self-symphony. We are imaginal selves. This is the nature of our community, and we're reimagining. We're going inside, and together we are becoming the birthers of homo amor, to reimagine reality, to become and seduce each other, to become the greatest versions of ourselves. Now, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred spaces of One Mountain, Many Paths, and I turn my word to you, beloved Dr. Mark Goffney.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am so, madly delighted, to be here. So madly delighted to be here. And it's really tears in my eyes. We got together right before the broadcast with the inner team that does so much fantastic, creative joy, work, vision in creating One Mountain. And I was just so happy to see everyone. And the choice that we make to kind of be here together, right? To know each other, right? To love each other, right? To be together and to be the revolution, right? To stand at the very core of the revolution as a band of outrageous lovers and to envision what's possible in the world. And literally, friends, in every generation, there has been what the interior sciences call the Chavraya, right? And the Chavraya means the holy band, right? The holy band, right? The band of outrageous lovers. Sometimes it's translated from the Aramaic as the companions. And the companions are usually a group of, sometimes it's 3 people, sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's a few dozen, who are at the core of a transformation of consciousness that is living at the periphery of society, right? It's not in the center of the mainstream. It's at the periphery, right? Imagine at the time of Jesus, right, in Jerusalem, right? The center of society was the Roman procurator Pontius Pilate, and the wealthy and the powerful, right, even in the Jewish community, were very much Hellenistic, meaning they had, in some sense, assimilated and abandoned the vision of the revolution for the sake of power, for the sake of a kind of ephemeral but seductive, in the sense of unholy seduction, the seductive call of the siren of superficial status and superficial success, of instrumental climbing that actually can never bring us joy, that actually leaves us empty, that actually leaves us hollow, right? A form of pseudo-eros, which leaves us with incessant cravings that can't be filled by the pallid fare and the unnourishing, almost repulsive taste in its aftertaste of the utter bloated consumption of pseudo-eros. And then there was this band in Jerusalem, happened to be a bunch of Jews gathered around, right, a teacher. And they were all teachers, actually, right? In the new vision, they were all teachers. And they gathered. And there was a crucifixion. And at the crucifixion, how many people were there? So few. So few, right? So few, right? The parties were going on and the revelry went on. And the powers of Rome went on. And that band held strong. They had a vision. They had a vision of a planetary Pentecost, to use the Christian word, right? We call it today a planetary awakening in love through unique self symphonies. Barbara Marx Hubbard, my dear evolutionary homemate, and I know you're listening right now, Barbara, right? We called together that planetary Pentecost a vision of a planetary awakening in unique self symphonies. And that group of people, those few dozen people, they come together, right? And they hold a vision. They hold a vision of something that's possible. They hold a vision of the possibility of possibility, of a world that can't quite yet be seen, right? Of a fragrance of a new human and a new humanity, of the possibility of Homo sapien, right? Engaged in rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics, becoming Homo Amor. And it's a vision of Eros. Because pseudo-Eros itself is the very source of existential risk. And I want to share with you in a couple of minutes just a vision of this Eros. But before that, I just want to feel, if I can, with permission, everyone, what it means to come together. What it means to come together, and why are we coming together? We're coming together because we're poised in this moment between utopia and dystopia. Literally poised between utopia and dystopia. Poised between a world more beautiful than we could possibly imagine, right? In a world that's crushed, right? In which upgraded algorithms control in dystopian metaverses, right? As Facebook becomes Meta, right? The world decided, Facebook's not a good thing. And Facebook decided the world's not a good thing. Facebook's response was, well, actually, the world's not a good thing. Let's actually get rid of the world and go virtual. Got to think about that. What does it mean to enter a metaverse, which is disembodied at its core, in which every single movement is measured computationally? So you've literally commodified all of reality. Every move you make, every breath you take, we'll be watching you. We'll be tracking you. We'll be computing and measuring and quantifying, and every single move you make becomes transactional in the service not of a greater good, but in the service of direct or indirect profit for the people who are actually controlling the metaverse. Wow. Pseudo-Eros in the extreme. That's one dystopian vision of the future. But there's other dystopian visions, right, which involve actual existential risk, which means there's actually no future at all. Right? We're at the last generation of humanity. And those dystopian visions are real. And there's other visions that involve catastrophic risk. And catastrophic risk means massive suffering or death to billions. And at the core of these risks, right, is actually a set of structural factors that are happening right now, which involve extraction models, extracting resources from the earth that it took billions of years to create. It involves exponential growth curves, which are at place in order to meet rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics. It involves developing now certain forms of AI, artificial intelligence technology that should not be developed, which is being developed anyways because there's a race to the bottom, multipolar traps. I know you're going to develop it, so I better do it so that you don't. Win-lose metrics. And all of it is happening as everyone's focused on the short term. All the long-term structural things are at play and creating the seeds of potential destruction. And everyone looks away. And everyone looks away not because they're bad, because no one quite knows what to do about it. No one quite knows what to address it, because there's not actually a shared grammar of value. We're not living in a shared story of value that would allow us to overcome the global intimacy disorder, which undermines our ability for global resonance, which then undermines our ability for global coordination, which is what we need in order to enact global solutions to every one of these global existential risks. But at the core, what's driving it? Underneath all of it, what's driving it? What's driving it is a collapse of Eros, right? A collapse of Eros. And a collapse of Eros means that I live in a shared story of value in which I experience, in that shared story of value, I have an immediate and direct experience of the goodness of reality. I have an immediate and direct experience of the beauty of reality. I have an immediate and direct experience of the truth of reality. I understand that everything's connected to everything, and that those everythings that are connected are not its, ITS. It's not interconnected its, but it's the interconnected, pulsing, throbbing, living organism. And that every one of us is a cell in that organism, even as we're irreducibly unique and individuated. And that each of us are individuated expressions of that organism with irreducible dignity. And each of us have a gift to give that addresses a unique need in that larger organism. And that unique need lives in our unique circle of intimacy and influence and can be addressed directly by us. And that addressing, that gift that's ours to give, is the great joy of our lives. That's what Eros means. Eros means the experience, number one, that it's good right now. And number two, that I have purpose, that I have need, that I have meaning, that I have a gift to give that's desperately needed by the whole. Those are the two dimensions of Eros. Right? Number one, the irreducible goodness of being, the unbearable goodness of being. Right? Number one. Number two, the unbearable necessity, the need for me, right? For my life, right? For who I am, right? I'm desperately needed. That's what Eros means. When Eros isn't there, you have pseudo-Eros. When you can't live in that story of value, you have pseudo-Eros, right? And that experience is what we're going to come together this summer to talk about. We're going to come together this summer, and someone maybe will put a link in the chat box, and we're going to spend 7 days talking about how we can address existential risk by enacting a new story of value, which is a new story of Eros. And we're not going to be doing any marketing for the summer. We're going to send the same mailing every day, which is show up. Show up because you're needed. Show up because it matters. Show up because you care. Show up because there's going to be an unspeakable field of joy like you've never experienced before, like I've never experienced before, because we're going to create a new possibility, right? And we're going to talk about, what does sex have to do with it? What's the relationship between the sexual, right, and the erotic? What does love have to do with it? What's the relationship between sex, love, and Eros? What does value have to do with it? What's the relationship between sex, love, Eros, and value? We're going to be looking at each of our sacred autobiographies and my own personal story and see how this lives in my personal story and how we could actually, each of us, write as the band of outrageous lovers a new chapter in our personal story that actually changes the course of the whole. Okay? That's what it means to be what the Zohar calls in the 13th century the Chavraya. That's how we began today, right? The band of outrageous lovers, right? The revolutionaries. Because when you step in as a revolutionary, when you step in and say, I'm not going to be Homo sapien, I'm going to be Homo Amor. And Barbara and I used to say to each other, we would call each other 5 times a day. We would communicate for the last 5 years of Barbara's life. We communicated 5 times a day, every day. And we'd say to each other, are you on the other side with me? Are you ready to go to the other side? One of the original iconoclasts. Icon is an idol. Iconoclast, someone who breaks the idols. One of the original iconoclasts is named Ibrahim in Islamic. He's a major figure in the original sacred text of the Bible. And Abraham's called Abraham the Hebrew. And Hebrew means Ivri, the one who crossed to the other side. So I want to just ask you a question, and if you can, maybe we'll meet in the chat box for a second. Are you willing to cross to the other side? Are you willing to step into the mystical, interior scientific significance of your life, in which you say, I'm joining the band of outrageous lovers, right? And I'm going to actually make my life matter so much because I understand that I live in the field of the whole, and I actually have a glimpse, a fragrance of enlightened consciousness, which every great system of interior science realized, which means I actually experience that the whole actually lives in me. So I live in the intimate universe. I live in the whole. It's all interconnected. But I actually have this realization, the sense the whole actually also lives in me. It's all in me. It's why I can feel the whole. It's why I can do mathematics, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics, how a mathematician can stretch and feel the whole cosmos backwards and forwards and express it in a mathematical formula, because the whole lives in me. I live in the intimate universe, and the intimate universe lives in me. That's what Homo Amor knows. That's what the outrageous lover knows. So I just want to just so gently ask you, right? Are you willing to play a larger game? But for real, right? To actually step in and say, I'm in this band of outrageous lovers, and I'm going to go out of my way. I'm going to inconvenience my small self. I'm going to inconvenience my contracted self. I'm going to inconvenience my ego self, right? Right? I'm going to get underneath the public game that I'm playing, right? I'm going to get underneath my attacking, right? I just saw a blog of somebody, right? Someone sent me yesterday, who basically spends his time attacking influencers in order to become, but he doesn't tell you that he's trying to become an influencer. Right? So in other words, the pseudo-erotic kind of like craving for attention, right? As the person kind of self-righteously, Joseph McCarthy style, attacks influencers, right? Dogpiles information, distorts, lies, right? I was reading this blog, someone who sets themselves, right? But really what they're doing is, it's actually a desperate move of pseudo-eros. I'm going to attack influencers because I desperately crave to be like them. And everyone's got their hidden little strategy, right? Can I give that up? Can I give up that small, contracted, coiled, desperate craving and actually step into the goodness of my life, the goodness of my unique self, the unbearable joy of my existence, and the knowing that actually I do have a gorgeous contribution to make. I've got a song to sing, right? A poem to write, a way of laughing, living, loving, and being and becoming in the world that never was, is, or will be other than through me. And my instrument is desperately needed in the unique self symphony as I play and listen to all the other instruments, and as I feel the interconnectivity of the all with the all. Right? That's Eros. Right? That's Eros. And we get a fragrance of it in sexuality. We get a fragrance of it in creativity. We get a fragrance of it in transformation. Right? We get a fragrance of it in innovation. We get a fragrance of it in service. Right? Like, wow. Right? So are we ready? Right? And I want to ask you, band of outrageous lovers, tears in my eyes. Right? Are we ready? Right? Where are we in Jerusalem? Are we with the Roman procurators, right, in the games of politics and surface power? Often we're disguising ourselves as the righteous rescuers when we're the predators. Are we speaking pretty words and dressing ourselves up with the charades of pretty costumes of righteousness, but actually we're driven by a kind of naked emptiness? Or are we willing to step into our eros and feel the pulse of reality quite literally moving through us, to go on a psychedelic journey of unbearable joy where I feel the joy pulse of cosmos awake and alive in me? And when I'm no longer in pseudo-eros, I step into eros. And when we democratize that experience, right, it's not just the experience of a master here or a master there. And all masters are, by the way, broken, and all masters are imperfect vessels for the light. So when I say master, I don't mean the perfect one. I mean those who are willing to lay their lives on the line, right, to feel that pulse. And that's all of us. It's not one master. It's not two. We got to move beyond the old vision of the master. We got to become masters together. We've got to create a unique self-symphony. It's not about Jesus anymore, right? It's about the unique self-symphony. But the unique self-symphony, right, is often at the periphery of culture. Are we willing, right, to actually move from the feasts in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago? And the Jerusalem of today, Jerusalem means Yir'ah Shalem, full consciousness. Are we ready to actually stand by the cross or the Magen David, right? Or the Buddhist symbol or the secular humanist symbol? But are we ready to stand in value? Are we ready to join the band of outrageous lovers? To know that actually my transformation is the transformation of the whole. That's the experience. That's the knowing of Homo Amor. The knowing of Homo Amor is that, and here it is, that reality is evolution. One, right? Evolution is the process of becoming. Two, underneath becoming is being, the utter goodness of cosmos. Three, four, becoming is the process of transformation. Five, reality is a series of transformations. Six, we've come now to the human level of reality. And the human level of reality has gone through transformation after transformation. Many of them have brought unbearable joy. But our exponential technologies have now also brought us to a place of unbearable risk to our very existence. 7, that requires a new transformation. Like always, crisis is an evolutionary driver. And crisis is always a crisis of intimacy. 8, and the crisis of intimacy today, this global intimacy disorder, is that we're not living together, 7.8 billion of us, in a shared story of value. 9, so we're clashing into each other in win-lose metrics, in desperate moves, right, to be seen, desperate gambits for power and status. But we're doing it now with exponentialized, weaponized technologies. 10, and those technologies are available to rogue players, to non-state actors. There's a race to the bottom. We're producing that which can destroy us, right? 11, how do we shift that? We shift that by articulating a new story of value. And that new story of value is not held by an elite, but it's actually lives. 12, it lives, right? The new story of value lives in the new human and the new humanity. We actually birth a new structure of consciousness in the world. 12, that's what we did with democracy. Democracy 1,000 years ago didn't exist. It was a joke. There was no possibility that actually there would be governance through something called democracy. But today it exists. That's how the evolution of consciousness takes place. 13, this new story of value, the emergence of Homo sapien as Homo Amor, where we actually understand that the whole lives in us even as we live in the whole, and that my transformation is the leading edge of evolution. Right? 14, right? Because who am I? I am evolution. Right? Evolution is not a fact out there. Evolution is a process that is the actual structure of cosmos that I am an expression of. Right? The evolutionary impulse doesn't live out there. The evolutionary impulse lives in me. 15, right? And so I'm a unique expression of the evolutionary impulse. And so the process of evolution, which is a series of transformations, is taking place in me. 16. And my transformation is the transformation of the whole. Right? My transformation transforms the whole. Like, wow. Can we actually begin to feel it? My transformation actually transforms the whole. Right? 18. And if I'm willing to be one of those who joins the band of outrageous lovers and says, I'm actually willing to lay my life down, not to give it up, but to live it in a way where I actually understand that I'm the superhero. I'm actually the superhero. It's not Superman. I'm the superhero. One of the things I love about superhero movies is that superheroes are becoming more human, more flawed, more complex. They're holding the holy and broken hallelujah, right? So 19, I might have skipped 18, but let's make it 19. 19 is I'm the superhero. I'm in the band of outrageous lovers. I'm stepping up and stepping in. I'm waking up. I'm growing up. I'm showing up. And I actually understand, right, that as homo amor, my transformation matters. That number 20, my transformation is the transformation of the whole. Now, when that realization, right, moves from a very small band of the elite, right, the masters in every generation who understood that they were axis mundi, that they actually connected, they were what the Sufis called the pole that connected heaven and earth. When that realization moves beyond an elite group of masters, and we actually manifest together this new human and new humanity, which expresses itself as a planetary awakening in love through unique self symphonies, right? 21, meaning the democratization of enlightenment. We join the band of outrageous lovers together, existential risk disappears, right? Because the extraction model recedes, because the multipolar traps all of a sudden seem ridiculous, because we step into a shared story of value, because we can actually stand in value and challenge, right, that which is against the greater good. That we can actually, for example, create a new Digital Communications Act, like we did 100 years ago when radio began in the world, which actually transformed social media, right, into what the old legal precedents demanded. Brandeis's, right, decision, right, and Frankfurter's decision in the courts in America, right, that actually, just like radio needed to be for the public good, social media is not just a privatized, neutralized, right, effort at technology. It's actually a public service that has to be for the public good. We can actually, Digital Communications Act, right, adopted universally around the world, right, which changes social media from the divisive, polarizing force, right, into a force that's for the public good. It's a complex maneuver, utterly necessary. Digital Communications Act. There's 1,000 things we can do when we have, right, a shared grammar of value. Right? We can do this. We can do this. So every week we come together here on One Mountain, right, to speak this revolution. Okay? Wow. And that's where we're going to get together this summer. You can join us online, but if you can, actually get a ticket. Right? Make the effort. Join us in person, because you know that your being there matters. Okay? The two people that run this festival, right, put, Shahat, right, and Claire put thousands of hours into it, right? And they get paid nothing. It's a joke, right? And that there's so many people here, right, who put thousands of hours into Joyce. I didn't see if Joyce was here today. This incredible woman, Joyce, right, who's done this incredible work in gathering transcripts and editing them and pointing us and learning how it should be, right? Now there's just incredible work of love, right, of this outrageous lover, Joyce, right, which I just celebrate today and I bow before, right, in mad devotion and mad honor, right? Oh my God, right? There's so many outrageous lovers here. Are we ready to play a larger game? And I'm going to turn to the chat box, if I can, to all of us. Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to play a larger game? Right? Are we ready? Right? Are we ready to actually be the band of outrageous lovers and to participate, right, together, right, in the evolution of love? Right? That's what we're here for. Right? And next week we're going to actually have a kind of, a beautiful, Krista Josepha called it a rally for the festival. I'm actually not going to give a talk on existential risk. I'm doing that right now, But we'll actually take questions and answers and talk about what it's going to be in, and we'll just dance together. We'll be in the energy and build this festival together. All right? I'm so excited to be with you. I'm so excited to be with you. I'm so excited to be with you right now. And just I'm madly honored. When I think about Clarence Schott, when I think about, right, Krista Josepha, when I think about David, when I think about Jamie, when I think about, right, Jacqueline, when I think about Suzette, when I think about Benjamin, right? When I think about Zohar, right, Kirsten, right, and just so many of us, and I'm sure I apologize, there's 1,000 names, right? There's such depth, right? There's such unbearable depth, right? Terry, I think about Terry Nelson, right? We've been missing you, Tom. Tom, I think about Tom. It's been a decade, brother Tom. Oh my God, right? There's so many people who are doing so much. Elena, welcome, right? Oh my God, Shanti, right? Unbelievable, right? Beyond imagination, right? We can do this, right? In this generation, right? This is ours to do. When I say ours to do, in concert with all the great people and forces around the world, recognizing in devotion the wonderful, gorgeous people, but there's not a lot of us, right? There's a few people who can actually see around the corner, right? And this is not a way of grandiose, right, claiming. This is a desperate, beautiful, radically joyous, awake realization that we need to be like Da Vinci in the Renaissance. And I've pointed out 1,000 times that Paul Tillich, right, the cultural critic, right, and thinker, points out that there were about 1,000 people at the core of the Renaissance. This is the moment in which there's a crisis of intimacy. And that crisis needs to be met by a new evolution of intimacy. The crisis is an evolutionary driver, and the new emergent needs to be homo amor, a new experience of what it means to be a human being, right? The move from pseudo-eros to eros, where we all gather in the public square, right? And we seduce ourselves to our own greatness, right? We seduce ourselves to our own greatness. We confess our greatness. Something like that. David, right, give us the code. This was a big intention setting. Give us the code for this week. Take us inside.
We're all invited. That's the beauty of this holy band of outrageous lovers. All are invited, but few step in. So here we are, friends. We're building the new humanity. And these codes that we resonate every week, they're like the cultural DNA, the blueprint of homo amor, right? So as we read it, we resonate. Let's let this code seduce us and activate our deepest potentials. So here's this week's evolutionary love code. There's no love without seduction. Seduction is a first principle and first value of cosmos. Wisdom is to distinguish between holy seduction and unholy seduction. Holy seduction seduces us upwards. Unholy seduction seduces us downwards. In unholy seduction, I seduce you to violate your appropriate boundary for the sake of my greed. Holy seduction is, I seduce you to transcend the boundary of your limitation, of your contraction, for the sake of your and reality's deepest need. Everyone is seduced. The question is to trust the right person to seduce you, or the right people, or music, or art, or dharma. So with that, I turn my word back to you, beloved Dr. Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's put the code in the chat box. Okay? And we're going to do a kind of special kind of prayer this week, right? In a new way. We're going to take a look at a clip. Are you ready? Christina Amlon, we got that clip ready. We're going to go to a scene in Italy. Okay? And I want to take a look at the relationship of eros to pseudo-eros and how eros responds directly to existential risk. How do you invoke eros? And remember, there's two parts to eros, right? One part of eros is the experience that it's already good right now, the intrinsic goodness of being, the unbearable goodness of being. That's one. And it's the opposite of Milan Kundera's unbearable lightness of being, right? It's the unbearable goodness of being. Number one. And number two, I've got a unique gift. And that unique gift makes music in the unique self symphony. And this is the core of One Mountain. It's the core of the Band of Outrageous Lovers, right? It's the core of the Chavraya, right? Of the companions, again, translating from the Aramaic. Right? It's the core of what Philip Wexler in a wonderful book calls the mystical society. And I want to show you, if I can, a vision of it that we looked at about a year and a half ago. And I thought about it this morning when I was thinking about One Mountain. And it captures everything. And I want to ask everyone, if you can, we're going to do this as a practice, to actually watch every face carefully. Okay, every face carefully. And then we're going to have a discussion in the chat box about what happened. Okay? And then we're going to go into prayer, and Krista's going to take us into a particular song, a particular way of making this alive. Okay? So who's ready to go to Italy? We're ready to go to Italy? Let's take a journey. Let's go to Italy. And I'm going to ask everyone, right, as we go to Italy, like, okay, don't get on your phone then, right? Hold your attention, right? Hold your attention. Place your attention in the center. Right? Don't get distracted, right? Be the master of your attention. Step inside. Your mind wanders, or we're doing a meditation here, but it's what's called an active meditation. It's not that we're going into silence, we're going into actually watching, actually seeing what's happening in front of us. We're going to Italy. We're going to meditate in Italy, but it's what Dalai Lama calls it, right? He said to me, right? He said it's an active meditation. Watch every face. Watch what happens. We're on the inside together. Band of Outrageous Lovers. Here we go. Italy, coming at us. Now, what just happened? Wow. What just happened? Anybody, what just happened? So I'm going to go to the chat box. Let's find each other in the chat box, right? Like, wow, right? That's what we're doing this summer. That's what the festival is this summer. When are the dates? I don't know. When are the dates, right? We'll see it in the chat box. But stay close, right? What was that? They're sitting there in a square in Italy, maybe near Firenze, right? What happens? Right? What happened? Right? So anyone in the chat box, okay? I'm going to track the chat box, right? What was that? Right? So Don, right? Music carries the words, right? Hearts opened, right? Joy, connection, allurement, symphonizing, right? Unique self symphony. Yes, but yes, that's all totally. But now we're going to practice now slowly, okay? We're going to practice now. All right? Let's go step at a time. In order to know what happened, you have to start on the outside and then go to the inside. So there's exteriors and interiors. So first, just tell me, just start in the beginning. Right? Start in the beginning. What were the exteriors? How did it start? Anybody, how did it start? Just start with facts. A child. Who said? Diane, right. A child puts a piece of money. Let's reconstruct it together, right? In the chat box, right? A child, just the facts. What happened? The child, who was the child? Was it a boy or a girl? Boy or a girl? Anybody? Boy or a girl? Was it a boy or a girl in the chat box? It was a girl. About how old was she? Let's collect the moment. How old was she? She's about 5, 6, 7, 8, right? She goes up to a man. Go slow. She goes up to a man, right? The man. Describe the man to me. Describe the man. Right? He was bald, right? But middle-aged. What was he wearing? Maybe at 50, 60, right? Dressed kind of classically. He was the one person and the whole place has this tuxedo. So you know that something's happening, right? She puts a little money, right, in his hat, and she kind of looks and sees what's going to happen. And that little girl lives in us. That little girl is us, who puts a little piece of money in the hat and wants to see what's going to happen, what's going to come out of that hat. Now, did you see who said she's curious? Right? She's curious, someone wrote. And he was already playing his instrument, right? And did you see the little twinkle? Who saw the twinkle in his eye? Anyone see it? Who saw it? Did anyone see? There was a little light. We're gonna look at this one more time. There's like a twinkle in his eye, and it begins. And then who was the second person who joined? Anyone saw the second person? Who was the second person that joined? Anybody? A lady? That's right. Right, a woman, right, with a cello, right, exactly, right, and she joins and she does it very quietly, right, about how old is she? She's probably about 50, right, she joins and then she starts playing, 40, right, okay, right, don't tell the woman I said 50, it was 40, okay, right, she joins. Now, is she wearing a tuxedo? Anybody, is she wearing a tuxedo? Right, no tuxedo there, right, she's right. Is anyone else in the whole scene wearing evening clothes that you wear to symphony? Nope. Right, everyone's wearing these very ordinary clothes. And then one person joins, and then another person, and then another person. And then you see people like watching. Somebody looks up, right? A young child looks up, right? An old woman looks up, right? A group of boys see like, wow, what's that? And slowly, another person joins, and another person looks up, and they say, wow, what's this? Now, lots of people didn't quite know how to be there, so they did what people do today. When you don't know how to be there, what do? You take a picture. Right? You hold up your phone to watch it, which is actually sweet and beautiful. Not bad people, beautiful, but it's a way of not being there. Does everyone get what I mean? We think that if we didn't record it, if it doesn't appear on social media, if we can't forward it to somebody else, it didn't happen. That's the tragedy of the commodified society. We're actually never here in the fullness of the moment. We're actually asking ourselves a question: did we create a social media post? Can we forward this? We're actually never present. And a life that's not public and recorded in public, right, and doesn't get a certain amount of likes and a certain amount of attention, actually is considered to be not a life. And that's how you get to the metaverse, right, in which you live in a purely commodified reality. Does everyone get this? Okay? Like, wow. right? That's why when you travel, leave your camera behind. Does everyone get that? Actually show up in the eternity of the moment. But most people don't. Most people actually, let's go back to our square in Firenze. There we are. Everyone's there. And slowly, everybody comes together, right? And what do they experience? And Kirsten, maybe if you remember the words, right? They experience in they're in German, Schiller's words to Beethoven's symphony, Ode to Joy, right? Ode to Joy, right? And what happens? And if anyone has the words, put them in the chat box. What happens? All of a sudden, this square is transformed into shimmering joy. Now, did anyone in the square win the lottery? Right? Did anyone solve a relationship issue happening at home? Right? Did anyone have great sex? Right? Did anyone, right, get a promotion at work? Right? Did anyone have some problem in their life solved? Right? None of that happened. Does everyone get that? None of that happened. And yet, everyone stepped into joy. Let me ask you a question. Was there only a particular group of people that stepped into joy? Nobody, right? Everyone, right? Stepped full into joy, right? And that's different, by the way, that's different when you actually go with a camera as a particular action where you're going to search and capture moments of joy, like Taheli, Christina Amlin does. That's a different usage of the camera. I'm talking about when you're in a moment and you just automatically take up the camera, not because the camera's actually a practice in which you're actually capturing eternity, but actually it stands between you and being in the moment. It's how you use the camera. Does everyone get that? It's so beautiful, right? Ode to Joy, right? Right? We enter Daughters of Elysium, which is the great mystery, right? In the Greek tradition, right? We enter drunk with fire, heavenly one, thy sanctuary, thy magic, right? It's complete magic, right? Thy magic binds again. And it's your magic binds means brings us together what custom strictly divided. Does everyone see what happens in that? Right? Custom meaning what custom divided, all of the win-lose metrics, right? All of the conventions that divided everyone in the square. Everyone was locked in their own rivalrous conflict, win-lose metrics, contracted, separate self-life. And then, drunk with fire, we enter again your sanctuary. The magic begins what custom divided, and all people become brothers and sisters where your gentle wing abides. Right? Wow. Whoever has succeeded in this great attempt, these are the words, to be a friend's friend. Whoever, right? This is what it's about. It's about a jubilation, right? To call his own in this world, right? And he who has never managed it, right, should never slink weeping from this union. Meaning if you never experienced it, and that's what we're doing this summer at the festival, and that's what we do every week at One Mountain. We're actually stepping into this union. Now, what stepped them in? How did they get inside? They were seduced. It was a seduction. It was a holy seduction. That's what we're talking about here. There was a holy seduction. And imagine reality. Reality has its exteriors. But in every second of reality, in every moment, there's a door. There's a door. And it's an invisible door, but it's always there. And that door has a key. And you can open that door. And music is one of the ways to open that door. Music is a key. And outrageous love is a key. And you place the key of outrageous love, or the key of music, or the key of practice through meditation, or the key of studying a sacred text, or the most powerful key, the key of coming together as a band of outrageous lovers and loving each other outrageously for the sake of the evolution of love. You place a key in that door and you open the door and you step inside and you realize that joy was always there. You open the door and you realize that you've always been inside. That it's always been an ode to joy. that every place you've been, you needed to be, that no one's an extra on the set and no action was unnecessary. And all of eternity resides in every moment, and every human being participates in the continuity of consciousness and in immortality. And all of reality reaches for its own wholeness in every second. And that is the true nature of what is. And that we don't need to look for the meaning of life, because there's nothing to search for. It's right here and available right now in its utter fullness for its own sake. And that all men and women are brothers and sisters. Was anyone excluded from that circle? Right? I ask you, my friends, was anyone excluded from that circle? No one. Did anyone in that circle win anything in the win-lose metrics? Anyone? Was there one thing won in the rivalrous conflict governed by win-lose metrics in that square in Firenze or wherever it was? Nothing. And yet everyone opened the door and stepped into the infinity of intimacy, the field of joy. And that is what we're here together to do. We're here together as a band of outrageous lovers. We're coming together this summer at the festival, right, to enact a story of value, which democratizes enlightenment, which invites every person to take up their instrument in the unique self symphony. And you might think in that square that the only people playing their instrument were the people playing. But the people playing, right, they were actually infused with love, blown open with love by everybody around them. And each person who opened their heart made the music more clean and more pure and more wonderful. Can you imagine? Could they have done that piece of music in a basement someplace by themselves? No, they couldn't have done it the same way. They could have played the music. But this piece of music, this moment, this joy needed every single person, every child. Did you see that child who was like on the pole? Did you see that guy, that older guy who was kind of unshaven? Who saw him? Who said, wow, right? And then everyone was weeping, right? Schiller, everyone was weeping from this union. Tears of joy, weeping from this union. We need to create that symphony in every city, in every town, right? In every language. But we can't just do it through Beethoven's Ode to Joy. We have to write the story of value that creates that joy, which is the story of unique self, which is the story of realizing that I am a unique expression of the eros, of the evolutionary impulse that lives in me, as me, and through me, and that my instrument, playing with other instruments in a planetary awakening and love and unique self symphony, and that my transformation transforms the whole thing. There's no evening clothes. Ordinary people, each one a superhero, each one gorgeous beyond imagination. Wow. And then at that moment, every single person, right, in that audience could look at each other and say, and know the truth of the following. How could anyone ever tell you that you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you that you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that our loving band of outrageous lovers, that our loving is a miracle, and how deeply we're connected to each other's souls? That's prayer. Sometimes prayer is when I ask for everything. And we need to do that. We need to turn to the infinity of intimacy and ask for everything. But there's another kind of prayer, which is called in the interior sciences, Va'ani Tfilah, I am prayer. I just become prayer myself. I become prayer myself when I'm playing my instrument in the unique self symphony. I'm giving my gift. And I'm in the unbearable goodness of being in this very moment. Okay? And so I want to ask everyone, I'm going to turn to Krista, who's going to actually give us this song. And then after, when she's finished, she's going to take us inside. But this is our prayer, right? And I'm going to ask everyone, if you're up for it, if you can, if you're willing, to weep from this union and say, right, and it's really simple, and say, right, it all depends on me. It's a big deal. That's not narcissism. It's knowing that you have a unique instrument in the unique self symphony, that you and I together are homo amor, that there's no guru. Right? There could be teachers. I need a job. But the ultimate teacher is the unique self symphony. It's all of us together. Right? And knowing that my transformation is the transformation of the whole. So our symbol for that today is it all depends on me. So if you can feel it, it all depends on me. And then, next sentence, it all depends on you. That's what it means. It all depends on me. It all depends on you. Krista, as you sing, whoever's willing to write that in the chat box, if you can feel it, blow it away. It all depends on me. It all depends on you. Take us inside.
So as we're singing together, I want to invite us to be that curious girl. And as I'm singing, we will be inviting each and every one of us to slowly, like that symphony, come on the screen here. So if you want, you can turn on your camera and put us all on gallery view so we can feel each other, so we can see each other. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your love is just a miracle? And how deeply we are connecting in our soul. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? And how deeply we are connected in our soul. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your love is just a miracle? And how deeply we are connected in our soul. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? And how deeply we are connected to our soul. And how deeply you are connected to my soul. And how deeply we are connected in our soul. And hold that tender moment here together as we are seeing, feeling each other. And maybe you want to also put each other on gallery view so you don't just see me, but we see all of our faces here. And I know there are so many more of us who are maybe on the road or too shy right now to turn on their camera, but we feel you with us, all the people listening on their phones. We are the band of outrageous lovers. We are that Chevraya Kadisha, that holy mystical society. And this is truly ours to do. And so next week, we're going to come together like this a little bit longer to feel into this space a little bit more. So right after One Mountain, we're going to have a full hour, an outrageous love rally, to be in this energy together, to drink from this energy together, to feel each other, to have a conversation with each other. And we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Mark Gaffney, and we can ask all the questions that we have, just to be in this community, to be together. And the next step that we want to take there together is also ask ourselves the question, what does reality need from me right now? And then specifically ask the question, what does reality need from me right now, relating to this outrageous love revolution, and specifically for the festival? Because like we always say, this festival and One Mountain and everything that we're doing and creating here together, it belongs to all of us, and it needs all of us to nurture it and to give back to it in our own unique way, whatever we can do to step in and give back. So next week, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to invite each other to commit our outrageous acts of love by sharing about the festival, by inviting our friends to come to the festival. So the first step I want everyone to take is to find the link in the chat box, and maybe someone can help me share it. I don't have it on my copy right now. To find the link in the chat box, and that's where you can find the event page. And I'm actually going to show that to you for a short moment. I can share my screen here. This is the festival, and here on our One Mountain website, we have this page for you. So this is the page that you can share with all your friends to invite them to come next week to this outrageous love rally right after One Mountain at 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is 8 p.m. European time. So find that page and share it with everyone you know. Next to that, we also invite each other to become a member, of course, of One Mountain, to support also financially. You can find that also on our website, onemountainmanypaths.org. As a member, you get access to our study groups, to our weekly writing group on Monday with Christina Tehel Emlong. And those places are a beautiful place also to meet each other like this, to write together, to practice together, to study together. So you are invited to participate in that as well. So now I want to still play our song. I know we're a little bit over time, but it's just such a beautiful way to dance it out, to blow this energy into the world and dance together and move our bodies a little bit. So Christina, please take us inside with Hey Brother, I think, right?